2 Halloweens ago, I was invited to go to this party that my one friend from school was having. It was a costume party, so everyone was required to wear something in order to get in. I went with my 2 friends, Katie and Fiona. We got to the party around 7 p.m. and it was bumping. Like there was well over 50 people there and the music was blasting. As the night went on, me and my friends eventually made it into the kitchen where we were doing jello shots and having a good time. Katie was in the middle of telling us all a story when all the lights went out in the house. I mean all of them. There were gasps and shrieks, but soon everyone just started laughing that it had happened. People started pulling out their phones and using them as lights. This part was a bit hazy to me because I was pretty buzzed and it was dark inside, but I remember hearing concerned voices coming from the living room. I had heard the front door open and slam pretty hard. I could tell people were starting to become concerned. I thought because the lights had shut off, but that's when I heard multiple screams. I had no clue what was happening, and in the limited light that I had, I saw everyone starting to run out of the house. Me, Katie, and Fiona all run out to the backyard with a bunch of other people. No one really knew what was going on, but we soon found out. When the lights had gone out, this kid, I'll call him Jared, had come in through the front door. He wasn't dressed in a costume, and he wasn't even supposed to be at the party. He comes into the house and found his ex-girlfriend, Cindy, who was there with this new guy that she was talking to. Jared proceeded to stab Cindy multiple times. That's where we heard the screams. He stabbed her and then ran out of the house. Cindy ended up being okay. She was stabbed in the shoulder, the bicep, and her side. She had to be rushed to the hospital, and it was actually terrifying at the time because we all thought for sure that she would die. The guy Jared was picked up by police that same night and admitted everything. Last I heard, he was sentenced as an adult and is serving time in prison. None of us could believe that actually happened, and it's actually a local town story that we still tell when Halloween comes around. If anyone is going to a Halloween party this year, just be sure to stay safe and watch your surroundings. It was always a tradition of mine to host my annual Halloween party. I would invite all my friends and family, and they would come to my house and we would pretty much get drunk, throw on horror movies, and dance around. Well, this happened at my last Halloween party. And just for reference, I do live in a pretty big suburban house out in Pennsylvania. The party was happening, everyone was having a good time, when there was a knock at my front door. I went to it and opened it, expecting it to be one of my friends that was showing up to the party. Except, it wasn't. It was an older man. I'd say he was in his late 50s, bald as can be, no facial hair, and these dull gray eyes. I asked him if I could help him, and he said he was walking around the neighborhood and he noticed all the cars out front. Am I having a party? I told him yes, but my suspicions were already on high alert. I lived in a pretty private neighborhood, and never in my life had I seen this man. He then asked if he was able to come in and join the festivities. I had to tell him no. This was invite only with close friends and family. He nodded his head and then walked away without another word. And yes, I did find this very strange, but I shut the front door, locked it, and continued on with the party. I was then in the living room. We were all dancing to songs and laughing when one of my friends came up to me. He said there was someone in my backyard. I go to my kitchen window and look out. In the very back part of my yard was someone standing there, except they had on this shitty white Halloween mask. But even from there, I could tell that it was that old man who had just asked to come in. Then guys, I mean it. He was just standing in my backyard, looking at my house with this mask on. So I opened my back door, and yelled out to the man that he needs to get off my property right now or I will call the police. The man again says nothing and just walks slowly away into my backyard woods until I can't see him anymore. At this point, some of my guests were a bit freaked out, and so was I. But we didn't want our night to be ruined because some idiot, and we all just took more shots. About 20 minutes after that happened, we all heard this loud thud come from upstairs. I turned off the music and told everyone to be quiet. We all listened as we definitely heard the sounds of footsteps walking around upstairs. I grabbed a kitchen knife and me and my friend Cody both go upstairs to investigate what that was. There was only 3 rooms upstairs, and when we walked into the first bedroom, we saw in horror that old man still wearing the mask going through my clothes drawer. I also saw that my window was broken and realized that he had broken inside. We shut the door and held onto the knob so we couldn't get out. I yelled downstairs to everyone to call the police now. I heard the man shuffling around in the room. Now get this. Everyone at this point had run outside the house for fear of this intruder. But when we locked the door and yelled for the police to be called, this man actually jumped out of my bedroom window. When he hit the ground, he broke both of his legs and wasn't able to move. This made it very easy for the police to detain him as he cried in agony in my front lawn. I still don't know who this guy was or what his purpose was for first wanting to party with us and then breaking in. It was a terrifying moment for me and everyone else. But the party must go on, and I still host my annual Halloween parties. Hopefully this year, we don't have any unexpected guests. So this story is both horrifying and tragic. I was at a Halloween party a few years back, and it was your typical party. Girls running around in skimpy costumes, drinking, and all that good stuff. It was a buddy of mine from high school, Griffin. He was hosting the party at his place on account that his parents would be gone for the weekend. And no, they did not know he was throwing it. I get to the party and I'm failing miserably at trying to hit on girls who went to my school. I was seriously not that popular by any means and barely got this invitation to come. As the night goes on, the entire party starts playing this game called Name a Bone. It's a drinking game. Basically every person has to point to a bone on a skeleton and then name that correct bone. If you name it correctly, nothing happens. If you name it incorrectly, you need to take a shot. Needless to say, I guess the entire party was clueless about bones, and we all got pretty hammered very quickly. As the night went on, people were getting pretty wild. Girls were making out with each other, guys were wrestling on the ground, and it was honestly crazy. I would also notice people passed out too. I remember vividly walking into the bathroom and finding this one guy sleeping in the shower with a bath towel as a blanket. I also noticed this one kid that was wearing an alien mask who was passed out on the living room couch. I have no idea how he was able to sleep because the music was turned all the way up. People were dancing, wrestling, and making so much noise. People started to notice this kid was passed out on the couch, and a bunch of people started taking selfies with him and cracking up about it. They also thought it was crazy that he could have passed out during all the commotion. This type of behavior pretty much went on the rest of the night. Now, thankfully, I was responsible enough to have a friend of mine come pick me up that night instead of me driving home. Now, from this point on in the story, I was not at the party, and this was told to me by someone who was there. Apparently, most of the people at the party got so drunk that they had to spend the night at the house. When they all woke up in the morning, a bunch of people were trying to help and clean up the place. But they noticed that one kid who was in the alien mask wasn't waking up. Someone went to go and shake him and noticed how cold his skin was. They went to take off his mask and saw that it was filled with vomit. And tragically, that kid's name was Hector, and at some point during the party, he must have gotten so drunk, he threw up and choked to death on his vomit. It's seriously heartbreaking, and what makes it even more disturbing, the whole time he was lying dead on the couch, people continually came up to him and took selfies with his body, not knowing he was either dead at that point or close to it. It was an actual nightmare. Griffin, my buddy who was hosting the party, got into some pretty serious trouble with the law because everyone at that party was underage. I can't imagine how the kid's family felt about it. And after that happened, I never went to any parties for the rest of my high school career. I saw how quickly they can get out of control, especially when alcohol is involved. I hope Hector is at peace, and anyone else who wants to go out and party, just please be careful. Sometimes the consequences can be deadly.